You guys are gaining so much momentum right now. The future is mushrooms. I think a stigma really existed. Real behavior change was required. You know, our generation cares about the science and they care about the research and they want to know if stuff actually works. We wanted anyone that thinks of mushrooms or functional mushrooms to think of DIRTEA, right? Why just sit on the shelf unless we do something that's exciting and interesting? Why don't we create the first ever mushroom bar in Selfridges? Brand went viral and we were gaining thousands of followers every single day, blew up on social media. We sold out. We want to build one of the biggest health and wellness brands in the world. DIRTEA has the chance to really inspire a generation.
Andrew,
Hey, how you doing, man?
pleasure, sir.
Great
Thank
to see
you
you.
for joining us.
Pleasure.
I am excited to get into all things DIRTEA and for you to share the story. But give us a sense of where it all started for you. We've known each other a long time, and I always admired you guys from afar. You've done some phenomenal things. Give us a sense of where it started.
Yeah, I mean, to go back all the way to the boathouse, essentially, I'd probably start with a place I used to go to every Saturday, which was Sylvia Young.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was always, for me, about the road to stardom and fame and entertainment. But actually, it ended up giving me some of the most fundamental skills I required in life as an entrepreneur. You know, this is the place I learned from a young age confidence, you know, how to communicate, how to sell, how to convince people of an idea, right? Which essentially as an entrepreneur, you really do need, right? So my story always starts with Sylvia Young, but I guess my first ever success was creating the social movement Feeling Nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And this was all about getting guys to check their balls for lumps and bumps and any signs and early signs of testicular cancer.
Yeah.
I think my brother and I, who have always worked with, who's my partner in business and in life, you know, we saw this incredible opportunity to not raise money for a cause. You know, you catch testicular cancer early, it's 100% curable, but actually to drive awareness. And I think I've always seen social media, building community, and using the forces of entertainment to really lure an audience and land a message. So that was a huge success. I think we got over 1 billion people to participate in that movement. Ended up with a show on Channel 4 called the Feeling Nuts Comedy Night, which was hosted by Jack Whitehall and James Corden. And that really got us started, right? And then from there, we got so many people approaching us wanting to work with us.
Yeah. What age were you? Because we went to school together.
That's right.
I remember after leaving school, following what you were doing and sort of, you know, picking on these huge events, as you say, you know, a huge cultural moment. But how old were you? And, you know, how did you have that confidence at that time? Maybe it all goes back to Sylvia Young giving you that confidence.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing to do at a young age.
It was, you know, I think I was wildly ambitious and probably quite naive from a young age. You know, I always got inspired by these like huge cultural movements, but really stuff that really would affect change. You know, I remember watching a documentary on the creation of Live Aid with Bob Geldof and thinking I'd love to do something like that, but like for our generation, you know, and looking, you know, when I was growing up, you had platforms like YouTube and Vine and you know, Instagram was sort of emerging. And I was like, how can I use social media entertainment as a force for good?
Yeah.
I think I was 24 at the time that Feeling Nuts ended up happening. It took quite a few years to get started and even me getting kicked out of America in the process. But yeah, that's really what got me started. And then I sort of realized, you know, my brother and I have quite, you know, unique talents. You know, we were really ambitious from a young age. Being an entrepreneur was something I always became attached to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, being creative, coming up with ideas, yeah, and like I say, you know, affecting positive change. And I guess that's what led to all these amazing other ventures that we got involved in.
Yeah. So that leads us nicely to DIRTEA, which I think we met in 2019. And having done all this amazing stuff in live and entertainment, you suddenly told me you're going to start a functional mushroom business. And I was like, okay. And you've created an incredible business. You've created a culture around mushrooms that people didn't previously have an awareness of potentially. So let's go back to the beginning. Like, where did DIRTEA start? Where did the actual idea come from?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I started to look at, you know, the world of health around 2017 and starting to realize the way that I was brought up was not about getting in front of health or staying in check or being the CEO of your body. You know, my parents and my parents' generation always took a conventional approach to health, right, and medicine. You know, if you were feeling down, anxious, you take an anxiety pill, right? If you were struggling with sleep, you have a sleeping pill. There was always medication to fix anything. Even if you were feeling ill, you go to your doctor and they prescribe you with, conventional medicine like antibiotics, right? I think my issue with that is always not being in control of health. And also, these medicines are all about quick fixes, right? And unfortunately come with a series of side effects. When we think about today's generation, we are so much more aware. We give attention to our health even before there's anything wrong, right? And we live this sort of healthy lifestyle. People used to go out and get drunk and go to the club and wake up with these terrible hangovers, right? That was the cool. But the new cool is about going to bed early, waking up, getting in a nice bath, drinking mushroom coffee, meeting with your friend for a juice and maybe doing a yoga class, right? That is the new cool, and health and wellness is the new luxury, right? And this became an interest of my brother and I. We built our worlds around wellness, right? And it became a way of life. Through this process, I became exposed to functional mushrooms. I think I probably read an article around 2019 on the future is mushrooms and they're going to change the world. I think it was in Time magazine. I became really inspired, right? And I wanted to be a part of it. I'd been drinking at that point functional mushrooms for probably about 2.5, 3 years. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the issues that I used to face, such as fatigue, burnout, brain fog, really like a low immune system, were quickly resolved by functional mushrooms. And I'd actually say, and I attribute to this day, the way I feel every day, that sort of mindset, is because I drink functional mushrooms every day. Yeah. And I felt, if I can feel like this, if my brother can feel like this, why can't everyone? Yeah. So that's when I started with my brother, our new mission, which can we get everyone to drink mushrooms every day?
Yeah, it's fantastic. It probably feels like a long time ago now, but give a sense of those first few weeks or months when you're starting a business, because for so many entrepreneurs, they have an idea, but it's the getting started bit they struggle with. And it was just you and your brother in the early days. So give a sense of, how you brought the product to market and how you thought about brand and packaging and finding partners and logistics and all of this stuff that often stops entrepreneurs from starting. Give a sense of that period.
Yeah, I think, first of all, we looked at the landscape, right? And who was out there, who was already in the space of functional foods and functional medicines and obviously functional mushrooms. I think we had sort of recognized it was quite a sterile sector. You looked at the shells, everything was quite boring, the tone of voice, the language, the brand, just very sort of uninspiring, right? Coming from a background of creating consumer brands, always sort of leading with entertainment, I felt that this industry really deserved the disruption, right? Yeah. So, first of all, there was no sort of aspirational lifestyle brand. There was no sort of consumer-led brand. No one was really building it correctly on social media. And then also there was a real poor quality of ingredients, right? Yeah. Our generation cares about the science and they care about the research and they want to know if stuff actually works. And also there's a lot of stigma that exists around mushrooms, right? And functional mushrooms. When I remember we did our first ever pop-up at Selfridges, we had people coming up saying, is this going to make me high? And why were we selling drugs in Selfridges, right? So I think a stigma really existed, and I think a real behavior change was required around the perception of mushrooms. And I really felt like we were up for the challenge, and we had the skill set, the vision and the network to really get started. So first and foremost, we wanted to focus on the product, right, and the ingredients, and making sure that we were educated about functional mushrooms. We wanted to be an authority, right, in the marketplace. When you think of home appliances, you think of Dyson, you think of electric cars, you think of Tesla, you think of home computing, you think of Apple, right? We wanted anyone that thinks of mushrooms or functional mushrooms to think of DIRTEA, right? And that all came from wanting to really educate the marketplace, because once people got the education and knew about functional mushrooms, in our view, they're going to want to drink it, right? And then the other part was taste, really thinking about experience, right? Something that people are going to want to return to. Essentially, we're creating a new behavior, right? A new habit. So you've got to make it enjoyable. I kind of felt like when we looked at the competitive landscape, no one covered off these fundamental bases. we really started there with the product. We built a real network of mycologists. So these are scientists that specifically study functional mushrooms. They actually invested in the brand. They helped us find and source these incredible farms all around the world, mainly in the South Province of China, which is the capital of mushroom cultivation. So once we got the product sort of there, we started to think about the brand, right? And my view is, if you're going to create a brand, you've got to come up with a great name, right? And you want a name that's going to make people smile, as a little bit provocative, it's going to get people's attention and start a conversation, right? Get people to ask what and why. So that's where DIRTEA came from.
It's fantastic. It's such a good story, and it's an example, I think, where it's real creative entrepreneurship, where you're making a brave decision to go and educate a market. Like educating a market takes time, takes a lot of money. Like it's actually, it's fairly well thought through. Like there's many easier ways to start a business, but doing something that haven't been done before always takes risk. It takes more energy, I would say. And you and your brother in particular have really brought that to this industry. I think what I've always been so impressed by watching you guys operate is how much you're prepared to grow the brand in person. I think that's probably the nature of the product. It's great when people actually try it, they have a DIRTEA aha moment, and they're like, oh, it doesn't taste like mushrooms. Oh, and it tastes great. Oh, and it elevates my coffee and it becomes a ritual. Like showing up in person, not just for samplings, but like generally how you build a brand in the 21st century where everyone's on phone and everyone's on social media. Like, how do you think about the brand showing up in person and building a community, building the brand in real life?
It's a really great question. I think from the outset, this really is a mission with purpose, right? And the best champions of the brand are always going to be the founders, right? We are the living, breathing consumer of functional mushrooms, right? And we live the lifestyle, right? We both wake up early in the morning. We really want to bring in the day. I think kind of having that foundation in the morning really sets you up for everything. For example, I try to go to bed as early as possible because the next day starts with how good a night of sleep you have, right? I think I mentioned I had a bad night's sleep yesterday, which is probably why I'm not quite in flow at the moment. But yeah, starting your morning with DIRTEA has always been the idea we wanted to create, right? And the best way is to lead by example, right? And in this day and age with social media, we get to do that, create our own personal brands, be the mouthpiece of a brand. I mean, if you look at, probably the best example is Richard Branson, right? How many people follow the Virgin brand account versus the Richard Branson account, right? And he is an inspiration, not just to entrepreneurs, but to, consumers out there. So I think that's a journey we've really wanted to take. I think community is fundamental, particularly in a world that's becoming even more lonely, right? And, people want to live this healthy lifestyle and they want to connect with people that have the same values. DIRTEA is a brand where people believe if they're buying DIRTEA, they're buying quality, right? We have this incredible credibility and trust. So anything we create, people want to follow. I've always been of the mind, if you win people's hearts, you get their minds. Once you get their minds, you can take them anywhere, right? So there's a real opportunity to build community in that respect. And I think when you're...
Some of those examples of how you've done that. Like I see videos of your brother at 6 a.m. jumping into the serpentine, and he's fueled by DIRTEA, and there he is, like freezing cold water. He's energized and ready to go. Like those showing up in person is just such a unique thing that you guys do. You've done breathwork classes, all this stuff. Like, give us a sense of that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess where it all really starts is a couple of places. Like when we started this brand, we used to gather people around and introduce them to functional mushrooms, right? And really tell that story and tell that narrative. I think a lot of brands are purely built on digital today with now no real sort of tangible experiences. And you really want to kind of create that emotional connection between you and the brand and everyone around. So, it starts at the places where, my brother, like you say, jumps into the serpentine with the DIRTEA tribe almost every morning in the winter. But then also utilizing these partners. When we started DIRTEA, we wanted to build this aspirational premium lifestyle brand, right? So we were very selective in who we worked with. As the brand went viral and we were gaining thousands of followers every single day, lots of different retailers and hospitality brands would reach out and they want to work with us. But we were very selective from the beginning. Our first two partners, one was Selfridges and another one was Soho House. You know, I remember when I met with the head of Selfridge's business of fashion when we spoke there. He said, you know, I'd love to stock you guys, and I said, look, I don't just want to sit on shelves. You know, we have a community, we have a relationship with our audience. Why just sit on the shelves unless we do something that's exciting and interesting? Yeah. And he said, like what? I said, well, why don't we create the first ever mushroom bar in Selfridges? And he said, sure, deal done. While sipping on a dirty martini made with lion's mane at the Soho farmhouse. And what we really have done there is we created a platform in arguably the number one retail platform in the world. I think I remember you coming. We made sure with all their VIP clients, we did a breath work. And where we sort of drank different functional mushrooms that will help down-regulate the nervous system, help with things like breathing. You know, cordyceps is amazing for increasing lung capacity. Reishi is great for regulating the nervous system. So you connect the product to sort of this holistic kind of activity. So those kind of events and those community elements, you know, in real sort of tangible environments is what really has helped create this emotional connection with the brand. I mean, I know I was on a shoot the other week and there was three of the crew who were like, I've been drinking DIRTEA for now 2 years. I was like, that's amazing. I was like, how did you discover it? And it was literally either through our personal Instagrams or these community events. And I'm like, I don't go a day without drinking DIRTEA. I think when you really build a brand around community, you almost build this sort of moat, and people will stick by you the whole way, which is really important, right?
And what's been the key to success online? Because, you know, maybe it's the fact that you've invested so much in building that community in person and in the real world, but online, again, you've activated a huge audience and, you know, fantastic content. Just last week, you jumped out of a plane with Bear Grylls. Like, you guys put yourself out there to create the content. You mentioned Richard Branson as a kind of an inspiration for that. But give a sense of, you know, what content works, how you're getting the brand to fly online, but also maybe give a sense of those content creator partnerships as well, those people in the world that people have heard of that, you know, giving some social proof to the brand, giving that credibility.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you know, when it comes to social media, you've really got to understand what's the content that people want, right? You know, people tune in because they either want to be educated, they want to be informed, or they want to be entertained, right? And they like familiarity, right? You know, if you look at, you know, go on TikTok, you've always got that guy that goes up to you and saying, hey, what do you do for a living, right? Or like, how much you pay for rent in New York? Can I see your sort of apartment? And the really interesting thing is there's something that you'd see that guy pop up with the same intro. You just want to hear what he's going to say, right? And we started that quite early on. You know, I think our first ever thing we did was my favorite mushroom fact, right? And this was a way to blow people's minds about this incredible kingdom of life, right? You know, for example, we share up to 54% DNA with mushrooms. That makes you half a mushroom, by the way. So, you know, we try to create these sort of formats that both educate the consumer, whilst also trying to also sort of plug the brand and the product in that process. And that's kind of what manifested this huge social media following. I mean, we've got over 700,000 followers now between TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah, fantastic.
And
D2C and retail. I know it's been, you mentioned that his partnerships with Selfridges and Soho House were kind of really pivotal in the early days, but you really got to know your audience by investing in direct to consumer, but increasingly retail is becoming a bigger part of the business. Can you give a sense of how you think about D2C versus retail in 2024?
Yeah, I mean, I think the landscape's completely changed. I think a single channel focus is no longer the right move, right? It's a lot more expensive to acquire a customer online and through social media. You know, we're not in a pandemic anymore. People aren't sitting behind the computer all day long doing their shopping and, you know, buying things for the home. So the days of just being a D2C business have gone. They've eroded. However, it's a great way to build a brand in the beginning, right? You know, you get that customer data, build that email database, and get products out to consumers super quick. But that isn't the business. That's just really the start. I think what's really good is really building the brand up via D2C on social media, so that when you start to see it in stores, you're like, oh, that's the brand I've seen and I've learned about online, right? So we were very specific in the beginning when it came to retail of working with sort of partners who were speaking directly to our consumer, but also building it around, you know, I don't think anyone in our space has really built a premium lifestyle brand. I'd say a lot of the brands that are out there are what I'd probably refer to as like growth hacking, right?
Yeah.
No real like brand strategy. They'll say anything possible to really sell the product and acquire the customer.
Yeah.
They're entirely concerned about like CACs and LTVs, which are all important factors, but that's all they really think about. Whereas we've really thought about more of a holistic, well-rounded sort of omni-channel strategy. Really following our consumer around, where they live, right? For example, if you're in West London, you can go to White City House and get your DIRTEA coffee. You can go and buy it in Planet Organic. You can go to a range of different like hotels, like the Berkeley Hotel. You can go to yoga studios. There's not many places where you won't find us around our sort of community. But, I also look at Amazon as well, right? Maybe gone are the days where, if you went on Amazon, you were considered a low valued brand, right? Glassette Azul, for example, which is one of the best premium tequilas. That's the best place to buy it. People have got used to this whole idea of prime, getting things in an instant, getting it next day. Even things like Ocado, right? We have a lot of mothers that are consumers, right? And really care about their health, showing up for themselves so they can show up for their families. And they want to be able to throw it in the cart when they're shopping on Ocado. So it's about really being present where the consumer is, and it's not just about D2C.
And given you have that relationship direct with so many customers over the years, give us a sense of the feedback, give us a sense of like what you hear from customers and how it's helped them, but also where you've had negative feedback and how you've dealt with that, or how you respond in almost real time to any of that feedback you get. Because I think, it's always the mark of an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think probably one of the hardest, but also combined with most exciting times was probably about a year and a half ago, where we absolutely blew up on social media and we went viral. And we sold out of, I think about 3 or 4 of our SKUs. Mm-hmm. By the way, this is at a time we only had 5 SKUs. Which was amazing, right? We had quite a small team, and suddenly all these people that were buying like our DIRTEA Linesman or DIRTEA coffee that were having it every single day, I think it read on our website that you wouldn't get it for 4 weeks, maybe even 5 weeks at the time. I think we probably getting maybe about 400 emails a day, terrible reviews on Trustpilot. I mean, there was probably about 4 or 5 of us in the office at the time. Really, really stressful time. God, it's a good problem to have, right? When you're so much in demand. But when people can't get the product, particularly when it's a health product, people have our Linesman because they suffer with issues like, ADHD. So we got terrible, terrible feedback. And from that moment on, we managed to recover it. I don't think we lost many customers at all. We managed to recover it, but from that time on, we've always made the rule like no stock outs ever, right? It's really cool when you've got a sneaker brand and you can do these cool sneaker drops, but when you've got this new sort of habit and behavior you're trying to create, and also people that are depending on their health can't go out of stock, they'll go and find the competition as well. I don't think anyone really competes at our quality and brand experience, but that might happen.
How do you think about motivation? What keeps you motivated? You're 5 years into this journey now. The brand's doing fantastic, one of the fastest growing in Europe. You've really created a whole new category, but like, what keeps you going? You mentioned you want to create a lifestyle brand, but like, how does the vision for the business and how does your own personal appetite to continue to grow as an entrepreneur, how do they link, and how do you think about that? What keeps you motivated in the morning when maybe drinking those mushrooms keeps those energy high? Or like, what really gets you out of bed in the morning, continues to do it, even during some of those tough times?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think there's a lot that keeps me going. I think first and foremost, this brand and this business comes from a very, very genuine place. My brother and I want to affect change. I think I've seen a lot of people around me who have not looked after themselves. They don't realize that actually what you consume and the way you live your life has direct ramifications to the way you feel every day, and also can help you to live longer, can also prevent illness. I think a lot of the people I grew up with, family members, never really understood that. And that's been quite hard to deal with, particularly when you feel it's a loss of control over health. I've never wanted to end up like that. And that's probably what's motivated me to live this sort of like health orientated lifestyle, and probably why a lot of people want to do that now. I think DIRTEA has the chance to really inspire a generation and give them the education and the tools to enable people to really take charge of their health. And I see it every single day. My DMs, my emails are full of people who want to share their experience with DIRTEA. And it's both emotional and breathtaking. You're like, wow, this stuff actually works, right? Even with kids, right? Going through things like ADHD or going through things like anxiety. I mean, I don't know about you, but I never heard the word anxiety when we were growing up. I think kids are so much more aware of it now because of social media, and it's less of a taboo. And the fact that we have these natural, powerful ingredients, functional mushrooms are some of the most nutrient-dense, most powerful, most researched foods on the planet. And within a day of drinking DIRTEA, you can see change to these really fundamental things that can help you be happier, be more productive every day. If I'm ever feeling down or a lack of motivation, I just open up my emails or look at my DMs and go like, wow, we have something serious here. We've got hundreds of thousands of people now that drink DIRTEA. Well, what if we had like tens of millions or hundreds of millions? Like, wow, that's incredible. That's what keeps me going. It's a serious mission with a serious product. So I'm never, ever lacking any motivation.
Well, great motivator. Because essentially you're in service of your customer base and people around the world drinking it. Let's talk about the role of others in your world and how they've inspired you, and the role of mentors. I know you surrounded yourself with some fantastic people, great investors, great advisors, great business partners as well, not just your brother, but others around you as well. How do you think about the journey of doing this for people that you want to learn from and that will inspire you, and that you can ultimately build something great together? Like how much is that important to you?
I mean, I'd say it's one of the most important aspects of being an entrepreneur. Being an entrepreneur is quite a lonely space, right? You're on your own most of the time. Obviously, I don't have that with my brother, but most entrepreneurs do, right? I think the wisdom of people who've gone out there and done it before is immensely valuable. And I think my brother and I, from a very young age, probably since I was in school, really sort of put ourselves out there to meet and connect with people. We've always been very good at that. And as you know, we've got a crazy network with a lot of hugely successful people that sit on our cap table, for example, have helped with DIRTEA. I think it's always been quite useful to sit with those with wisdom and experience and talk about issues and problems or ideas, and as a sort of a sounding board, because ultimately when you're on your own and you don't have someone above you giving you direction, you're not always completely sure your instincts are correct. So we've had some incredible people that have been there for us since, probably the age of 16, even in like really tough times where we need some serious help. And I'll never, ever forget that.
What does the future hold for you for DIRTEA? I think you guys are getting so much momentum right now. I love seeing the new appointments. I love seeing the partnership with Bear Grylls, and there's so much more to come. But how do you think about the future of DIRTEA, and how much do you think about the future for you as an entrepreneur? What does that look like?
We've got off to a great start. DIRTEA is really a way of life, right? It's a commitment to health. It's the best way to start your day, right? I think like Kellogg's, so in the morning with cereal, we want to in the morning with functional foods, right? Functional mushrooms. We've got so many more products we're going to be bringing out. To be honest, we are a globally renowned brand, but ultimately we're a London brand, right? Most of our customers and the success we've gained has really been from the UK and more so London. As an investor, how well we're doing. Taking DIRTEA around the world is really sort of key, and it's going to be the most biggest focus over the next sort of like 18 months. We're really kind of looking at kind of luxury brands and lifestyle brands as sort of inspiration around doing things like product drops, different retail partnerships, very cool sort of pop-ups. We're not just growth hacker brands like others. So I think what you're going to see from DIRTEA is global expansion.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see some amazing partnerships that will come to life, which are going to be groundbreaking. You know, I look at inspiration from brands, not in our sector, because I don't think there is stuff inspiring me, but I look at brands like Levene and On Running and what they're doing. You know, On Running's doing incredible in terms of footwear and now athleisure, and what they've just done with, you know, Zendaya. In fact, they did a partnership with a collaboration with Levene. It's really expanding the reach of the brand, right? Which ultimately helps grow revenue. It helps acquire new customers. So yeah, I'm trying not to give away too much. You know, obviously we just launched the gummy brand, which has been quite transformative. I think people love to make their DIRTEA in the morning, but if you're in a rush and you're on the go, it's so much easier to sort of pop these gummies. I think with the gummies, we've also made sure that we've kept to those original values I spoke about in the beginning, you know, quality, 0 grams of sugar, high sort of potency, 3,000 milligrams of mushroom, but also the experience, right? They taste great.
Yeah.
That's our kind of newest milestone in the journey.
Fantastic. I can't wait to see what comes next. Final question, Andrew. If you weren't an entrepreneur, if you weren't building DIRTEA, what would you be doing?
Probably one of two things. I'd probably be a tennis player.
I'm letting them to play you at tennis now.
Yeah, exactly.
The confidence in the way you said that. I know I should never play you at tennis. That's brilliant. Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing the story.
Yeah,
I can't wait to see the continued success.
Thanks so much.
Pleasure.